We are hearing from a Native American elder and Vietnam War veteran speaking to CNN after a disturbing viral video shows a group of teens harassing and mocking him in the nation's capital. Here's the video sparking outrage on social media right now. Nathan Phillips was beating his drum and singing an American Indian protest song. And this was on Friday on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial when he saw a clash erupting between a group of teenage students and 4 African-American young men preaching about the Bible and oppression. Well, Phillips says he immediately sensed danger. Then Phillips describes the tense moments now being replayed over and over again online when a young man got right in his face. Watch.
When I started going forward and that massive groups of people started separating and moving aside to allow me to move out of the way or to proceed, this young fella put himself in front of me and wouldn't move.
Of course you know this account of what happened is true because of the sincere look of concern and sympathy on this NPC news reporter's face. So let's repeat those facts according to CNN. This was a disturbing viral video showing a group of teens harassing and mocking a Native American elder when he saw a clash erupting between a group of teenage students and 4 African American young men preaching about the Bible and oppression. And one young man got right in this elder's face. So let's see how those facts stack up. Well, CNN is in good company because ABC News agreed, as did The Guardian, and the New York Times upped the ante, claiming these MAGA hat-wearing boys mobbed the native elder. But not so fast, NPC Media. It turns out there's a little more to the story. In fact, there's about 1 hour 45 minutes more footage than the 1 minute selectively edited that sent the masses into meltdown mode. Now, there were essentially 3 groups of note here. First, these schoolboys were from Covington Catholic High School in Kentucky. They were in Washington, D.C. to attend the March for Life rally. After the rally, they split up for sightseeing and were told to be back at the Lincoln Memorial by 5:30 p.m. Many of them arrived about an hour or more earlier than that. Then there were the group of Native Americans of which the elder Mr. Nathan Phillips belonged. They were in DC for the Indigenous Peoples March. And the third group, and without whom this scene doesn't make much sense, yes, NPC Media, it's called context, the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has listed the extremist fringe of the Hebrew Israelite movement as black supremacist. But given the SPLC's track record in recent years, that's not saying a whole lot. Now, right at the beginning of the video footage, you can see a member of the Black Hebrew Israelites chastising Native Americans on why they lost their land.
Before you started worshiping totem poles, you was worshiping the true living God.
That's right.
Before you became an idol worshiper, you was worshiping the true and living God. And this is the reason why this land was taken away from you. Because you worship everything except the Most High. You worship every creation except the Creator.
That's right.
And that's what we are here to tell you to do.
And throughout this video, they're hurling all kinds of abuse. Here's a sample.
Let's make America great again. A bunch of child molesting faggots.
That's right.
Just like your damn Donald Trump.
That's right.
If you Google, go on YouTube, and you see your faggot president kissing Giuliani when Giuliani dressed like a drag queen.
That's right.
A damn faggot.
That's right.
That's all he is. A bunch of pedophiles.
That's right. This nigga scoffing now. Now he being an Uncle Tom. That's right.
Don't be an Uncle Tomahawk.
That's right.
But remember, the real racist is the kid standing there in a non-confrontational fashion, in silence, with the occasional smile on his face. Got it. Now, because of the abuse from the Hebrew Israelites, one of the schoolboys asked one of the teacher's chaperones for permission to begin their school spirit chants to counter the hateful things that were being shouted at them, the kind of chants used at sporting events. From the 2 hours of footage I watched, there is no evidence that anyone chanted "Build that wall," as Mr. Phillips would later claim. Now you can see at this point, Mr. Phillips, the Native American elder, wanders into the crowd. Yes, that's right, Mr. Phillips went to the crowd of boys, not the other way around. And as you can see, they don't impede his movement. They get out of his way.
Hey, y'all better not touch him.
Now take note of the young man at the centre of this controversy, Nick Sandmann. He didn't walk over to Mr. Phillips and start harassing him. Phillips walked straight up to him. Here's what Sandmann had to say. The protester everyone has seen in the video began playing his drum as he waded into the crowd, which parted for him. I did not see anyone try to block his path. He locked eyes with me and approached me, coming within inches of my face. He played his drum the entire time he was in my face. I never interacted with this protester. I did not speak to him. I did not make any hand gestures or other aggressive moves. To be honest, I was startled and confused as to why he had approached me. We had already been yelled at by another group of protesters, and when the second group approached, I was worried that a situation was getting out of control where adults were attempting to provoke teenagers. And that's worth remembering here. These are kids. What about the so-called adults of the Black Hebrew Israelites? These kids chanting positive school songs was a great way to counter the bigotry from these religious zealots. Now, Phillips told the Detroit Free Press that they, referring to the schoolboys, witnessed these individuals, the Black Israelites, on their soapbox saying what they had to say. They didn't agree with it and got offended. Then things got heated. They were in the process of attacking these 4 black individuals, Phillips said. I was there and I was witnessing all of this. As this kept on going on and escalating, it just got to a point where you do something or you walk away, you know? You see something that is wrong and you're faced with that choice of right or wrong. Phillips said some of the members of the Black Hebrew group were also acting up. Actually, they were the only ones acting up, saying some harsh things, and that one member spit in the direction of the Catholic students. So I put myself in between that, between a rock and a hard place, he said. But then the crowd of mostly male students turned their anger towards Phillips. Yeah, get a look at that anger permeating those teenage faces. There was that moment when I realised I've put myself between beast and prey. These young men were beastly, and these old black individuals was their prey. And I stood in between them, and so they needed their pound of flesh, and they were looking at me for that. Well, why didn't they take their pound of flesh then? Could it be they were a bunch of teenagers chanting some school songs to drown out the racists next to them rather than a wild mob baying for blood? I mean, if it was the masked cowards of Antifa, I'd understand being concerned about violence. But if you actually watch the footage, Phillips' version of events borders on delusional. Phillips sees himself as a hero, laying his life on the line. Oh, and so does Congresswoman Deb Haaland. The reality is Phillips' intervention wasn't necessary, nor would I argue was this from Phillips' entourage.
For you white people, go back to Europe where you came from. This is not your land. No, it's not. You've been here 2-3 generations. Compared to us, we've been here a million fucking years. So get the fuck out of my face with that shit.
And Phillips has form. He dutifully played the victim when he tried to lecture a few students participating in an American Indian theme party in 2015. I'll leave a link to Phillips' account of those events, which include him being bombarded with racial slurs and a beer can thrown at him, although I'd take his words with a large grain of salt if I were you. Now back to Nick Sandmann. I believed that by remaining motionless and calm, I was helping to diffuse the situation. I realised everyone had cameras and that perhaps a group of adults was trying to provoke a group of teenagers into a larger conflict. I said a silent prayer that the situation would not get out of hand. Now, I would give you a lecture on the efficacy of prayer, but that's beside the point. I never felt like I was blocking the Native American protester. He did not make any attempt to go around me. It was clear to me that he had singled me out for a confrontation, although I'm not sure why. The engagement ended when one of our teachers told me the buses had arrived and it was time to go. I obeyed my teacher and simply walked to the buses. At that moment, I thought I had diffused the situation by remaining calm, and I was thankful nothing physical had occurred. Now, on the whole, I think these kids handled themselves admirably given the abuse hurled at them. Perhaps the only suggestion of mocking was that some of them appear to be imitating the Florida State/Atlanta Braves tomahawk chop, although they don't seem too committed to it. These kids didn't surround this Native American guy and start mocking him. One of the students tells it this way. In the midst of our cheers, we were approached by a group of adults led by Nathan Phillips, with Phillips beating his drum. They forced their way into the centre of the group. We initially thought this was a cultural display since he was beating along to our cheers, and so we clapped to the beat. He came to stand in front of one of my classmates who stood where he was, smiling and enjoying the experience. However, after multiple minutes of Mr. Phillips beating his drum directly in the face of my friend, mere centimetres from his nose, we became confused and started wondering what was happening. It was not until later that we discovered they would incriminate us as a publicity stunt. So they had no real idea what Phillips was up to. They were, at least initially, quite happy to clap along to Phillips' drum beat. So again, I say these kids handled themselves well given the circumstances. The media, on the other hand, were appalling, but even they were tame in comparison to the Twitter outrage mobs. Yes, the good old Twitterverse had everything from crackpot conspiracy theories from feminist idiots like Jessica Valenti to hot takes on smirking. I mean, check out this unhinged Gizmodo journalist.
From elementary school through college, I went to school with sheltered upper-middle-class white boys who could devastate with a smirk, a facial gesture that weaponized their privilege. Infuriatingly, you can't fight that fucking smirk with a punch or words. We saw that as Trump smirked his way through the election, and we'll see it at that boy from Kentucky's friends, family, and school protect him. I fucking hate that smirk. It says, I'm richer, I'm white, and I'm a guy. My existence trumps your experience. Few things make me as angry as that smirk.
Clearly a case of first world problems.
I've learned the best recourse is to ignore those fucks and keep dismantling their power structures.
And as reliably as ever, Sean King chimed in with his usual disregard for facts, evidence and reality. Naturally, there was a BuzzFeed reporter making a complete fool of herself, and the Washington Post's Karen Chumulty, rather than demonstrating the death of irony, put another nail in the coffin of responsible journalism. Then, of course, we have those calling for vengeance, with good old Kathy Griffin leading the charge. And finally, we have the inevitable comparisons of this kid smiling with Hitler Youth. Let's be clear, these people are out of their gourds. They so want these kids to be racist bigots they'll ignore any evidence to the contrary, which is to say, all of it. These emotional haemophiliacs took one look and saw white, male and MAGA hat and then went full libtard. And if there's one thing you should never do, that's go full libtard. I'll see you next time.